for Arfield. 1-0 Burnley. Scott Arfield. He's been threatening that recently. And all the Burnley players run to the Darwin end.
Burnley win the next ball. It's Rory now. On the outside. Decent.
He got it. Ashley Barnes with it. What a cross from Rory. And there was Ashley Barnes. And Burnley leading the derby.
Knocks it quickly, finds Benson in space at the byline. Can Burnley get a goal here? Back for Brownell, saved by the keeper.
Burnley won it to the end. That is magnificent. They deserve that.
Only by Paul Patella, off for a hat-trick.
He's got it. Hat-trick for Nathan Teller. Oh, he's on fire at the minute. 3-0 Burnley. It's Nathan Teller's day.
Burnley are 3 up here. Fantastic derby. Here's Benson. Can he go on the outside? Comes inside. Top shot.
Oh, the goal. Manuel Benson once more. That is top class.
Burnley have done it. Fantastic. Clarets deserve the championship title. They've been the best side throughout the campaign. Burnley have won the second tier. What a fantastic achievement. The players have been magnificent.
Yes, hello everyone and welcome along to the latest instalment of the TurfCast podcast. Full-time show after Burnley's dramatic 0-0 draw at home against promotion-chasing Sunderland. Obviously, they're a promotion rival of ours. That doesn't tell the full story, though. Obviously, dramatic ending at the Turf as James Trafford saves 2 controversial penalties, with the last one being in like the 96th minute, just to save Burnley a point. And of course, Burnley fans are going to celebrate it. They have every right to celebrate it. Some of the stuff I've seen on Twitter from the Sunderland fans has been nothing short of a disgrace. Celebration police have been out. You're not allowed to celebrate saving a penalty in the 96th minute. And I've literally, just before I've gone live, I've literally received a tweet off a Sunderland fan. Where has it gone now? It was literally, I think it's blocked me already. Yeah, here we go. 6:30, 2 days later, and they are still biting. He put, cheers for the 4 points this year, you absolute tin pot club. So I've shared that and put 6:30, 2 days later, and they are still rattled. James Trafford rattled the entire Wearside community. But yeah, obviously we'll take the point in them circumstances. Would have liked the win. I do think Sunderland were the better side on the evening, but we'll get into my thoughts in a bit. I'll obviously need to introduce the lads. As you can see, I'm joined by Andrew and Sam. How are we doing, lads?
All right.
Good, mate, yeah.
Happy days. Happy days. It's been a cold one today, hasn't it? I were up at Lakes, walk up at Lakes, and it was freezing. It was foggy everywhere. I'm like, my God, this is not why I come up here. Took dog for a walk. It was freezing. But yeah, I hope it's been a little bit better where you are. But anyway, let's get into it. I'll start with you, Andrew, because it's looking like your internet's looking a little bit better at the minute. Are you currently on the phone as opposed to the laptop again this week? Yeah.
Hamsters have warmed up this week, so yeah. So why not give it a go?
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough. But let me know your thoughts on the game, please, mate. And get your comments in as well, please. I'll read out the best ones as usual. Let me know your thoughts on the game in the comments, please.
Yeah, it weren't the greatest of games for it. I thought first 15, 20 minutes we were much the better side, and you know, we looked like we'd come out on top and created some chances. And then we just let Sunderland get back into it, and that's been it for the rest of the match. I thought, other than, obviously, I know we'll go into it, and he's saved them 2 penalties, and, you know, he's deservedly got man of the match for saving the penalties, but I genuinely didn't think he played well up until that point. There were a lot of moments where he were hesitant on the ball. You know, there's that moment where we're passing it round the back, and he's kicked it out of play for a throw-in when, you know, you just want him to boot it upfield. But the whole team were like that. It weren't just Trafford, it were everyone in the team. And like I say, I thought first 15, 20 minutes, we looked like we were well up for it. But after that, they just came, and I don't want to say we were lucky with a point because I thought we deserved it on a whole, but it weren't a greatest of games.
No, yeah, I agree with that. I thought we were on the balance of play. I thought Sunderland probably deserved the win. I think you were saying that it would be harsh to say that we were lucky to come away with the point. I think we kind of were. When you look at, obviously, there's the 2 penalties, and I know that'll always skew XG and stuff. I hadn't even checked the XG because of that. But I know that always would skew the XG in that scenario. But it weren't just that. They had that chance through Isidore earlier in the second half after that great pass from, I think it was from Lefay, actually. And then they had a chance later in the second half as well that CJ Egan-Riley blocked after that controversial penalty. Obviously, we'll get into the penalties in a little bit and talk about them individually. But yeah, I thought Sunderland were the better side. I agree with you. I thought the first 15, 20 minutes, we were miles and away the better side, like easily, not even up for debate. I think for the rest of the first half, I'd probably say Sunderland just shaded it, but they didn't create anything. Like, they were the better side and had more of the ball, but in that time from the 20 minutes to half time, they created absolutely nothing with that. So I think people will look at that and say Burnley were the better side in the first half. And I think in that second half, I think Sunderland were better than us. I honestly think they really were better than us. They created more chances. Obviously, they had the 2 penalties as well. So just by that logic, you should be winning the match. Obviously, we'll get into the penalties in a little bit. But yeah, I thought Sunderland won the battle in midfield. I thought Bellingham and Lefay, especially Bellingham, I thought he was brilliant. I did go to the stadium a lot, and I was relatively impressed with Bellingham then, but I was more impressed with how well he pressed us. Whereas he was really good on the ball on Friday night at Turf. It was fantastic. And he was pressing us as well really, really well. You just said there you thought Trafford was poor with the ball at his feet, and I agree. And it not just Trafford, some of the defenders as well. I think that's down to how good Sunderland pressed us.
Yeah.
I don't think that's a critic. The players were just bad. I think Sunderland's so good at pressing. Like, they really, really are. And I think that's why we struggled. And I know I've referenced it in my fan reaction, but I know not everybody watches the fan reactions who listens to this. So what I remember, the Burnley Express sports reporter, Matt Scrafton, he put a tweet up saying he felt sorry for Trafford because, the fans are anxious when the ball's going back to him. They weren't at first. In the first 15, 20 minutes, and they were passed it round at the back, there were no anxiety from the fans. But because Sunderland pressed us very well and we nearly caught ourselves short, or got caught short a few times, and then continued to make the same mistakes, that's why the fans started getting anxious. And then that gave Sunderland a bit of confidence. Then they grew into the game. Then they just pressed us better and stepped onto us even more. And I think in the second half, yeah, they were comfortably the better side. Sam, your thoughts on the game, please, mate?
I think you guys have summed it up quite well, to be fair. I think, we I don't think we were awful, but I definitely think we were definitely very void of ideas. Attacking creativity was absolutely non-existent, but I do feel like we've got used to that. But I feel like it changes week to week. There's some games where we are so on it, and maybe we don't score the goals that we should do, but the chances are still there. For me, we were so poor at creating chances that, for me, the best chance I can think of is the Jadon Anthony shot, which was about 10 minutes.
And Anthony had that shot in the first half, which it's a good save, but I feel like he's got to do better than that. And then Fleming dragged one wide. Obviously, there's another incident where Fleming should or shouldn't have had a penalty. We'll get into that in a little bit. But I agree. I thought in terms of chance creation, as usual, we were poor.
Then after that, the only other opportunity I can think of is the cross from Laurent, which everybody said was absolutely screaming for a striker. But for me, I do think a striker solves some of the issues, but not all. And the reason I say that is because I don't think that we have the creative players from the wings. And I don't think when we have those players on the wings, I don't know what some of them bring. Jadon Anthony was really good in the first half, and then just absolute shell of himself when he came out for the second half. He was non-existent. He wasn't able to beat his man. I give Jadon Anthony a lot of stick. Some of it justified, some of it not. But in that game, his first half performance and his second half performance is exactly why I find him so frustrating, because you don't get the same player either week by week or even in the same game. What on earth Foster did to stay on the pitch as well for as long as he did. He was horrendous in the first half. He couldn't make a pass. One of the best things that he did in the game was beat his man to set up Jadon Anthony's shot. And it was an accident. He kicked it at the defender and it bounced back off of it. He didn't do it on nothing that he tried yesterday, on Friday, sorry, did anything. And then we decided to stick with him up front, and he was even, and people were screaming on Twitter, and we were talking about it in the group chat about he's playing out of position and he's ineffective. He was equally as ineffective in the half an hour that he had up front. The best thing that we can talk about from that game is that it still shows how amazing we are defensively. And that also brings James Trafford into it, because our defence and goalkeeper this season are genuinely picking us up points and keeping us in the position that we are. And that statistic that that I put in the group chat, that before, and I know it feels like a false statistic, but it isn't, is that we scored 9 goals in the first 2 games. Since then, we've scored 22 goals in 24 championship appearances. We are not scoring a goal a game. We are averaging less than a goal a game, and we are still in the top 3. So for me, I find that absolutely amazing. But you can clearly see where those signs are that we need, and I do, and I do definitely think that there's an argument for those wingers as well, because we can play Sarmiento on the left, but he's a frantic player as well. He's not someone for me where I'm like solidly needs to play on the left hand side. Jaden Anthony's too inconsistent. Coley Osho just looks like he's absolutely not interested whatsoever. And I'm even going to say it, and Kieran, I know you're in the chat already, but even Brownell had a stinker, and even I can sit there and back up that he was awful on Friday.
He were anonymous, weren't he?
He was anonymous, and yeah, I think I'm more disappointed because I feel like I keep having this thing where we get like 3 or 4 games and you think, oh, it's getting a bit better. You know, we beat Blackburn, and you know we beat Sheffield United, and we struggled against Stoke, and then you come to this game and you're like, are we going to eventually start to just crack on and eventually take that next step? And you don't like to compare to the company days, but we had 10 games where we couldn't see it ticking, and then all of a sudden it just started to gel together. It has gelled, but for me, in the side of the pitch that doesn't excite you as a fan. So whilst we are all absolutely buzzing that the defence is absolutely brilliant, I don't, as a football fan, you want to go into a game and you want to see a team really take the game to a team. And we don't see that. And we haven't seen that for 24, 25 games this season. And from a fan perspective, it's quite boring. We go side to side. We play Bashir Humphreys down the left-hand side. And then who's he playing it to? Because Foster's, for some reason, dropped into centre midfield. Fleming's at the edge of the box waiting to score a screamer. Jaden Anthony's still trying to take his man on even though he ain't got ball. Like, we just look so void of ideas, and it's so frustrating. But the point is huge in the grand scheme of things. So caveat in that, it's a good result.
Yeah. SAFC4 Life is in the chat. He says Sunderland XG second half was 2.78. I mean, come on, mate. If you're going to pull XG out of the hat and try and use it as a stick to beat us with, let's be fair, you had 2 penalties, and I think each penalty, depending on what site you use, is something like 0.8 XG. Obviously, there was the chance that you had with Isidore as well, went clean through on goal. He should have scored that. And there was the brilliant block from CJ Egan-Riley, but some Sunderland fans would argue that he shouldn't have been on the pitch, and that brings me on that. In fact, no, it doesn't bring me on nicely. I need to read out some of the comments because I promised everybody that I would. Simon Marus, it's always good to see Moretti in the chat. He says Super James Trafford in goal. Claret Al says, evening Clarets, Friday matches don't half murder the rest of your weekend. You know what, mate? I know I've already said it, but I actually enjoyed this weekend. As soon as I realised that I had the weekend off and there were no footy, I'm like, right, sweet, I'm booking an hotel up at Lake, so I've actually enjoyed it. I won't be able to do the same next week because I'm working over the weekend. George Rodriguez says, good afternoon, everybody from the US. We'll be making the pilgrimage to Burnley for the final home game of the season with other Clarets from the US. Look forward to it, mate. Give me a shout, as I've already said on Twitter. Scott O'Sullivan says both penalties weren't missed. They were saved as both were on target. Yeah, good point, to be fair. Obviously, we've all given Trafford as dues, to be fair, on Twitter. And you know, they were both fantastic saves. Got in the head of the Sunderland striker a little bit, but it's all part of the game, isn't it? Martin Mac37 says, hello to all. Hi, mate. Martin Stevens says we need to start making some moves in the market. We are seriously lacking in creativity. Spot on, mate. I know you wrote that before. We've just had that debate, but obviously we have just had that debate there on Twitter as well. Sorry, in the chat as well. Scott O'Sullivan says, let's hope Andrew is hooked up to Starlink. Simon Fisher says, Andrew needs to upgrade his hamster to a guinea pig. Claret Owl says, bloody cold tonight. Could do with a weather update from Andrew. Get them hamsters fed. To be fair, Andrew's on his phone tonight. And when he's on his phone, it does tend to be a bit better. I don't think it's his internet, I've decided. I think it must just be his 1995 Windows laptop. Or something like that anyway. Richard Taylor says, everyone seems to be getting there with 3 penalty units. Don't worry, mate. I've wrote them down. We'll be discussing all 3 here. Kieran Phillips is in the chat. He says, evening, gents, evening, mate. Phil says, good evening, lads. Evening. Dominic Hall says, the Sunderland game shows how desperate we are for some attack-minded signings. Yep, completely agree, mate. We've obviously spoken about that since that comment. Kieran says, I feel we dominated the first 60 minutes, then we dropped off and invited the pressure. And in the end, 2 great saves by Traff. So happy with the point in the end. I will actually just quickly point you all in the direction of the YouTube, because we are doing a poll on there, which I'm about to end. But I put a question up on YouTube, says, who was the better side on the night? 20% have voted for Burnley, 36% have voted for Sunderland, and 43 have voted for about the same, where I spelt about wrong. Apologies, I will just realise I did that. But yeah, keep your eyes out on there. There will be more polls coming up to ask questions about the penalties. Phil says, this is the one draw I just can't and won't get over this season. I was expecting a reaction to get our payback, especially with us miles better than them, but when they beat us earlier in the season. Yeah, cheers, mate. Apologies for my Key Stage 1 reading. Bell Differ says, I like it. It's a James Trafford song. I'm not singing that, mate. Wayne Ingham says, hi, boys. Super James Trafford. Evening, mate. Jack Etherington says, outside of the 2 penalties, I thought it was a fairly even game, to be honest. Usual Burnley performance, solid defensively and poor in front of goal. Yeah, I mean, we obviously were good defensively, but they still had, even when you don't count in the 2 penalties, they still had 2 very good chances to win the game. But I do agree, we were great at the back. There was a couple of times, obviously, Trafford making them saves. I thought Esteve was brilliant again. Obviously, CJ was as well. He always is. Richard Taylor says, don't forget the Isadora chance was a break from us missing an equally good chance at the other end. Did it? Yeah, I think it was. I can't remember anyway. Bacon TK says, Foster played out of position. Bashir had to play like a right winger. I do agree. He was played out of position, but I agree with Sam. It was poor with Foster. Brian Gott says, set off well and then seem to run out of ideas. Start off well, sorry, I think he means. And then seem to run out of ideas. We're always in the game in the first half. Second half, set off okay again, but wanted to walk the ball in. Sunderland movement better, and we tend to get in good positions and go back like everyone needs to touch the ball. Their striker was a handful for Steve. It was, but I thought Steve was, it dealt with him very well. But yeah, there was a lot of, a bit like the big lad up front for Blackburn, probably a bit better than he is, to be fair. He just wants to bully people. Aaron Wright says, I've just joined. Don't know if you talked about the attack, but think we need a playmaker more than a striker. Yes, Aaron, we did. We talked about that quite a lot, to be fair, and completely agree. Martin Stevenson said, we had 2 good chances with Robertson, Anthony, and should have been 2-0 up in the first 20 minutes. We were just poor in the final third. Sean Rubino says, what's worrying is Trafford saves diluted just how bad we were up front again. The lack of movement in the box, players running into space, and the lack of striker is frightening. I don't say this lightly, but this is a worst Burnley side attack-wise in this century. And number 9 is an absolute must. I think back to strikers I previously would. Barnes, I think, is that meant to say? Ings, Austin, Gray, Payton, to name a few. Foster isn't the answer. To be fair, Foster, I do agree he was poor, but he played out of position, as we've already touched on, even though he did go up front, but again, he played out of position. Anyway, thank you for your comments. Keep them coming in. I want to know now what everybody thinks of the penalties. Obviously, the first penalty, Andrew, I'll come to you first on this one again. Yeah, there's not much to say about that first penalty. I mean, come on. Again, apologies, I can't show the video, but this is the moment that the contact is made. Not initiated. I don't want to use that word because CJ doesn't make a tackle here. The lad runs across CJ's path. And I think that's the only reason, in my opinion, why CJ doesn't get sent off here, is because he doesn't make a challenge. He doesn't make a challenge here. He just runs across the path of the striker runs across the path of CJ Egan-Riley. And then obviously his knee clips him. And then that means his leg goes into the striker's leg. And then he falls over. But that's where the contact is. You can clearly see it's not in the box. The referee I mean, come on. I know Sunderland fans think he was poor as well, and Sunderland fans will argue he should have sent off CJ here, and he should have been a bit more stricter with Trafford. That's fair enough. You can argue that all you want, but this is an absolute disgrace. Why is he given that when he isn't 100% certain he's in the box, and why is he not getting a shout off his linesman who's on the side where the camera is? Why is he not getting a shout off his linesman there? I have never said this before, and I don't think I'll say it again, but if you're going to get decisions like this wrong in games of this magnitude, which could, really affect the promotion at the end of the season and a certain club's bank accounts towards the end of next season, it could be us or obviously Sunderland missing out, then that's scandalous. You've got to get these decisions right. You can't be getting decisions like that wrong. But yeah, Andrew, I guess there's not much more to say, is there, other than it's obviously not a penalty.
No, it's obviously not a penalty. God knows how many times I've seen it back. I'm still not convinced it's a free kick. I
agree in a way because he doesn't make a tackle, but he's still preventing it. It's still that contact which is done is still preventing. I don't think, I said it in my fan reaction, but I don't think we could have any complaints. I think it would have been harsh, but I don't think we could have any complaints if the referee gave them a free kick and sent CJ off here.
No, if he had, I'd have been miffed because for me, like I say, I don't think it's particularly a free kick. However, Sunderland fans will agree it's not a penalty. Like, everyone will agree that it's not a penalty. He's miles outside the box. But for me, it's still a contact. Like, football's still a contact sport. That happens in the middle of the field. There's no questions whether that's a foul or not. It just carries on. But the referee on Friday, he spent the whole game where one decision would go one way. He'd realised he'd cocked it up, so he'd try and make it right the next time something like that happened. And I think there were a few incidents where he's not given a free kick to Sunderland, he's not given a free kick to us, and he's tried to almost fix the mistake that he's made earlier. And that's what I feel like he did here. I don't understand how he's given the pen. Like I say, if he gave the free kick, I'd be really pissed off. But I can understand. I'd have understood how he'd given the free kick. The fact that he's given a penalty there when the linesman is on this side as well, it's just mind-boggling. It's genuinely baffling.
Yeah, I mean, I could understand. I put a comment up earlier on the screen. Good to see Chris Wilson's in the chat, by the way. But he says none of the three are pens. But if you're giving a pen for the second one, then the Fleming one is a pen. Agreed. We'll talk about them ones individually as well as this one. But I can understand why the referee's got that one wrong. Look, he's not even in shot for a start. And he's already shown before this point that he's incompetent. There was so many different things that you already mentioned where he were getting stuff wrong for Sunderland and for Burnley. Jadon Anthony should have had a free kick early on in the first half when he went through on goal and was wiped out. One of Burnley's attacks was created after we fouled one of their players. He gave a free kick at one point when Bellingham just stepped onto Brownhill and just muscled him out the way, and he gave us a free kick. It was never a free kick. But it was awful for both sides. I can understand why the referee has got this one wrong, because he's not in line with the box. So he obviously thinks, it's in the box. Because I think when he throws himself to the floor, because he doesn't originally go down, his heels clip, then he takes another step, then he throws himself to the floor. I think at that point he's in the box. So the referee's just gone, well, he's in the box. But why is a linesman there not at any point saying, oh, hold on a minute, ref, you've got that one wrong. I think it's a free kick. But Sam, I mean, there's not much else to say, is there really? I think we're all in agreement, as we've already said, that it's not a penalty.
No, mate. I mean, if you think that's a penalty, then you're in the wrong sport, aren't you, really?
Yeah, Sean Rubinho says first was a shocker, second was soft, but the basic rule of defending, stand up to them and don't dive in. Yeah, I'm going to bring the picture up for the second one in a minute. Martin Stevenson says there was a comment earlier on from Jack that said you can't give a penalty then a red. That only applies to the goalkeeper, that double jeopardy rule. I think you can with the defender. You would have seen it before, you definitely can. But yeah, I think that only applies to the goalkeepers. Alex Maxwell says he got everything about the first one wrong. Free kick and red is what it should have been. Even if it's a pen, he should have been a red because he didn't make a genuine attempt to play the ball. Jack T. Stretch. I mean, if he gave the free kick, yes, fair enough. Sorry, it's a different one. Martin Stevenson, he's in the chat. No ref or lineman in the pitch. The thing is, but with the, I don't know where the linesman is, but I think the linesman is relatively in line. The ref's miles away, mate. Claret Albert. The ref is miles away. So I can understand in a way why he's got that one wrong, because he's nowhere near it, and obviously he's not looking in the line. But anyway, second penalty. And Sam, I'll come to you first on this one. The second penalty that was given, by the way, I'm not obviously going to talk about the Fleming one just yet. We will get into the Fleming one. Oliver Son obviously goes in on Turkey, is it? Dives in. I mean, I'm going to be honest here. I'll say it now. I think this one's a penalty. In fact, just before I get into this, I put a poll up on Twitter, on YouTube. Should the first one have been a penalty? 93% said no. How that isn't 100%, by the way. It's 100% not a penalty. Everybody knows it's not a penalty. All the Sunderland fans in the chat and people trying to wind us up are saying yes to that one. But anyway, for me, Oliver Son, what are you doing? Like, why is he going to ground there? You're sliding in. Just stand your ground. Just stand your ground. I think it's a penalty because he's gone to ground when he shouldn't have. He's made a tackle that he doesn't need to make. Just stand your ground and force him out or block the cross. But he's gone to ground, and some people say that he slips. Not Oliver Son, the Sunderland player. He doesn't slip. There's contact made. Again, I can't show it because of rights and stuff, and I know still image isn't the best. But there's clear contact made from Son's knee onto their player's right foot. And yes, he might go down a bit easily, and it might be a little bit soft. But I think for me that one's a penalty. I just think it's stupid from Son, if I'm being honest with you. Your thoughts, Sam, on that second one, please, mate?
Yeah, it is a penalty. I mean, it makes a referee's mind up by going to ground. I think there's no decision to make if he stands up, but because he's gone to ground, makes a referee's decision even easier. I think he does. I think he does slip. I don't think he goes down from the contacts, because if you go down from the contacts there, honestly, you might as well be a twig. There's no way you fall down from that little contact. But 100% a penalty. But in fairness, I personally don't even think Serkan should have been on the pitch, because he had about 7 fouls and didn't even get a card. So I surprised he still managed to stay on pitch. But yeah, unfortunately, he's a young lad. He's clearly just had an adrenaline rush and thought, I need to try and make a statement. And the statement that he has ended up making is he's made himself look a bit silly. But like I say, he's a young lad, and he's only just joined. He's not necessarily there to be the starter and the wise head yet. You don't want him to make mistakes, but at least he's making the mistakes early on and not later on down the line as a Burnley player. So hopefully that's out of his mind now and learns from that mistake and it doesn't happen again. But it's definitely a penalty.
Yeah, I agree. Dominic Hall says Son shouldn't be going to ground there. Hopefully he'll learn from it. Sui says left knee takes him out, soft, but it's a pen. JK says, why was Oliver Son even brought onto the pitch? Just to get his own debut? Again, mate, I agree. I said that in my fan reaction. I don't know if you've seen it, but it's just a strange sub. And some people were saying that Roberts were getting caught out all the time. The only time he was getting caught out was when he was trying to go forward. But yeah, I just thought it was a strange one. Like, especially in such a high-risk game. If we lose this, Sunderland go above us, and then obviously Sheffield United and Leeds have won since, so all three of your direct promotion rivals would have won, and it just felt like a strange sub. I think Parker got that one wrong, if I'm honest. Martin Stevens says Serkin plants his foot on Son, but Son gives the ref a decision to make by going to ground. Bob Devine says he's anticipating a cross, and the Sunderland lad was very, very very clever. I don't know what's wrong with my voice today. Simon Fisher says penalty, but a very soft one. Son gives the referee a decision to make. Stuart says, I thought he had given it because it hit Son's hand. Yeah, I've seen this banded around on Twitter, mate, and I have no idea where it's come from. I think maybe the commentator said it. I'm not sure. But no, he's not giving it for handball, has he? I don't know where people are getting that from, if I'm honest. He's giving it because Son's took his leg away, basically. Brian Gott said, I think he slid to block it and then he stepped onto it. Not a penalty, but it was given. David Gold says, naive defending from the young man, just block him. A Stonewall penalty. the duality of man in them two comments. But yeah, I agree with you there, David. Malm says, first no pen, but red card, second 1,000% pen. David Lake said the ref mound handball to CJ Egan-Riley. Did he? I've not seen that. Adrian McDonald said defo pen. Jack T Stretch says he's sliding in for a block and the Sunderland lad has seen him coming and stepped his way for easy contact. Yeah, I agree with that one, mate. I think that is the reason, that pretty much what happened there with that one. But of course, that's not the only controversial decisions that we are going to discuss, because of course, Burnley potentially should have had a penalty. Andrew, I'll come to you first on this one. I can't make my mind up with this one. I'm leaning more towards no, if I'm honest with you. I think the defender, I don't know. I think the reason why it's not given is because the referee thinks the defender gets in front of Zian and then gets a touch on the ball, but the problem is he doesn't. I think with this one, say, for example, if this was a Premier League game next season and the exact same things happened, I think obviously the first one gets overturned because it's outside the box, but then he probably gets a red card through VAR, potentially. Then I think the second one is just given anyway and it's gone to VAR and they've just given it and it's still the same. But I think this one, I think this one probably would be given with VAR because it doesn't get a touch on the ball. It gets in front of the defender. The defender gets in front of him, and I think the referees then thought that he's touched the ball. But obviously, if you watch the clip, I can't show it you, but if you watch the clip, I think that's why the referee's not giving it. But yeah, your thoughts on this one, please, Andrew?
Yeah, I'm same as you. I think from our perspective, Fleming's got to be stronger there. I think he's been out muscled and he's got to be stronger there, but at the same time, their player has gone through him and not got the ball. But if the referee's going to give that one down the other end, the second penalty for Sunderland, I think is very soft. And I think if the referee is going to give those two as penalties, you have to give this, especially that first one, you have to give this one. It's, there's no contact on the ball whatsoever on this one. He's gone through the back of Fleming. But this were at the moment where I think when Roberts were on the floor, this were at that moment, and I think that something were going on in the referee's head where he just couldn't stand up to the occasion, and he's just let it slide. And this is what I mean when he's made these mistakes. I think he's realised he's made a mistake with this one. And then, obviously, when he's looked at the other two, thought, oh, I've made a mistake, one penalty, I can't make another. And, yeah, it's just one of them, but I think it's soft, but it's a penalty if you're giving the other two.
Yep, fair enough. There was actually a Sunderland fan in the chat. I did put it on screen while Andrew was talking, but Black Floki says, Sunderland fan here, I think it is a pen. It is a foul by 09, so... Interesting. Dominic Hall says, if the second Sunderland one is, then the Fleming one is 2, in my opinion. JK says it was a penalty, but we fouled them in the build-up. Yeah, I did mention that earlier on, didn't I, mate? He got so much wrong. It weren't just for us. I mean, the 3 main decisions went against us, but he got so much wrong in that game. The referee, and you know what's... Andrew, I think you've hit the nail on the head there. The referee just couldn't stand up to the occasion. And I think that the occasion of the game, I don't know anything about the ref other than that he's an incompetent idiot. But I don't know what games he's done in the past, how long he's been refereeing or what he's done. But I just feel like the occasion of this game, with it being such a big game, so much jeopardy riding on it throughout the course of the season for both clubs. I just feel like the occasion got the better of him and he bottled it and he just made so many wrong decisions. I think you've hit the nail on the head there with that one. Claret Owl says, if the Son one is a pen, then this one is 2. Adrian McDonald says, Fleming is a pen, put his leg across his standing leg. David Gold says, without the dreaded VAR, this decision is difficult to make. The referee needs the different camera angles to assist him. I agree with that one, mate. Like I said, I think with VAR, this one's given. And I think the Son one is also given with VAR. But I think, obviously, the first one, the CJ one isn't. Phil Wilcott, who was late, by the way, mate. Not good enough. Come on, Phil. No, I'm joking, obviously. He said, ref couldn't wait to give either pen to them. He wouldn't have given us a pen for us all night. Sam, your thoughts on this one, the Fleming one? Do you think this one's a penalty or not?
I definitely do think it's a penalty, and I agree with you guys. I think, if we had VAR, I think it would be one. But I think Fleming needs to get better at how he's trying to sell these penalties to referees, because the way he falls down is similar to the one in the Blackburn game. The way he falls makes the referee think that nothing's happened, because he literally just flops to the floor. He's not even really making an attempt at the ball. It's literally like he's playing for that penalty before he's even gone for the ball. So I think Fleming needs to get a bit wiser to things like that. But I think for me, like when it comes to our penalty shout, I find it really difficult to sit and like really try and judge that penalty situation just based off of how poor we were. Because if that was the way we were going to score in that game, with something that was fine margins, could have gone either way. Unfortunately, in this case, it went, the wrong way for us, because we would have rather had a penalty and had the opportunity to score. But that would have been our best chance to score all night. And that for me is the biggest issue, regardless of whether it could have been a penalty or not. The reason why we managed to get a point in that game is because of James Trafford, because he was absolutely incredible. We showed nowhere near enough to try and even score a goal in that game. So if we'd have managed to get that, Sunderland fans would think we'd hoodwinked the referee as well. So, like, the only difference for us is we can actually sit there with his chest out and say the reason why we managed to get a point is because... What's going on here?
That's carry on. Sorry, that's something in my house. That
I just didn't know what it was. I thought it was going out of my computer. I was like, what's going on?
No, it's not Andrew's internet breaking.
That just really thrown me off now. I thought it was like some alien transmission or something like that. No, I struggle to really try and hone in on the penalty side of it when we were just so poor. Like the reason why we didn't get anything else out of that game is because we weren't good enough. That penalty would not have saved us, because we were just so poor. So
yeah, you know what, mate? I'm glad you've mentioned it, and I'll stick with you now, because I want to say I do want to talk about the lack of creativity, right? And obviously that's what you want to talk about. Feel like you're quite passionate about it at this stage. Probably just fed up of watching it. But the Burnley's last 4 games: Middlesbrough 0, Burnley 0, Burnley 0, Stoke 0, Blackburn 0, Burnley 1, Burnley 0, Sunderland 0. That's 4 games, 1 goal. 4 games, 1 goal. Okay, 4 games, 0 goals conceded. You can look at it that way. But we know the defence is good. We know CJ's class. We know Esteve's class. We know Trafford's really coming to his own this season. And obviously won us the point on Friday night. But with this mad sort of like lack of creativity, why do you think it is? Because a lot of people keep saying we need a striker. And I think a striker will help, personally. I think a striker will help. But I don't think, as you said earlier, it solves all the issues. I don't think it's a personnel issue. I just think it's the style of play. We are so compact. And Parker first wants to keep clean sheets. And they say good defences win your titles and stuff. That's fair enough. But you also need to put the ball in the back of the net as well, or find a way to consistently score goals. You don't have to be the highest scoring team in the world, but 1 goal in 4 games, it's not going to get you in the top 2. Like, we've cracked it. We know how to keep the ball out of that net, but now we need to find out a way to put the ball in that net. So why do you think there is this mad sort of like lack of creativity in the team?
How long have you got? I
About
think
20 minutes, mate.
No, I could go for that long as well. I think there's a multitude of reasons. So I think, from a personal perspective, I think, like you say about Parker's style of play, is, I agree, defence first, and he does stifle the attacking outlet. But one of the things, like you just said then as well, about is good defences win your titles, and the proof is in the pudding of where we are in the table, is that we are still in and amongst it, playing under Scott Parker's style of football. So it can't be said that it's not working, because it is. This is the annoying part of it, is because we actually don't have a leg to stand on in saying what more do you want? Because Leeds have dropped points against teams that they should have beat. They drew with Portsmouth. They drew with Preston. They were losing to other big teams as well. They lost to Sunderland at the Stadium of Light. Like
2-2, I think that was.
These things all happen to other teams as well. So there's a reason why there's no runaway team in this division, because we all have issues. Okay. One of the things that used to frustrate the life out of me under Sean Dyche is because of how deep you play, you can't spring a counter-attack, and especially against other teams that play a low block anyway, because they sit there with their banks of whatever already back ready to defend. So when we do win the ball back and we're trying to spring a counter-attack, you're not springing a counter-attack because you're bringing the ball out from the edge of your 18-yard box. You're not bringing it out at the halfway line and you've got a ball over the top to pacey Koleosho, because even when Luca's on, Luca's playing as almost like a right wing back next to the right back, because we're trying to stay so compact. So when you do finally win the ball back, because I have to admit, I think we win the ball back a hell of a lot in games. We win the ball back so much. Those midfielders win the ball back loads. But when you don't have an outlet, because we can't shove the ball up to Fleming, because the ball doesn't really stick with Fleming. And one of the things that is starting to frustrate me as well is somebody mentioned before about CJ Egan-Riley's crossfield balls. They're brilliant, but they're so easy to read and they're so easy to go wrong. You're asking a player to pluck a ball out of the air and bring the ball down either in the stride or to try and bring the ball down and be able to play the ball. That's a difficult way of attacking. You're not going to create bags of chances playing diagonal balls all the time. The only reason why that used to work for teams like Liverpool is because Trent Alexander-Arnold is pinging a diagonal ball to Sadio Mane or Salah. That's the reason why those... well, whatever. But this is a chaotic stream, isn't it?
It's not been great.
And I think that for me is one of the reasons why we are struggling, is because that outlet ball, we are so deep that we can't get the ball going, because when we are trying to play in and around and try and get out, you're playing it into a compact midfield or a tight fullback position, and it's not easy to do. And I have to admit, Jayden Anthony is probably one of the better players to do that first touch and bring the ball down from a crossfield ball. But is that creative enough? Because then you're asking Jayden Anthony, who's up top on his own, because Fleming's had to drop in and play Brownell's role, so Brownell can drop further back. So who's up with him? He brings the ball back and he brings the ball down and he looks up and he's got nobody to his left. So he either takes a touch forward or cuts back and goes back to Roberts. And that's why we keep playing the ball left and right and left and right. And I think one of the things as well is the personnel side of it. I don't think that Jayden Anthony, even though I am starting to come to terms with the way that he plays, and I don't hate him, but I can't tell you the glaring thing that he can do consistently. He doesn't beat his man consistently. Sometimes he can get past his man, but then his cross is crap. Sometimes his cross is brilliant, but there's nobody in the box. And that's the thing that's frustrating me, is because there is no solid answer. Brownell's in games, then he's not in games. I agree with that. I still think he's been one of the best performers in the team, but he's inconsistent as well. The left-hand side, we've got no idea who's playing there week in, week out. It was Hannibal, it was Foster, it's been Sarmiento, it's been Koleosho, it's been Jayden Anthony. We don't have a left-sided player. We don't know who it is. Morgan Whittaker, for me, is the most complete player that we could go out and buy, but he doesn't fix the problem for me, because you're almost then saying Jayden Anthony goes onto the left-hand side and Morgan Whittaker goes on the right, but you're still playing Fleming as the number 9, or you're putting Foster in there. Foster, for me, has done... I've seen enough of Lyle Foster in a Burnley shirt to know that he's not the Don to be up front, because the guy is so inconsistent with being fit. I can't tell you something that he's really good at, because he can't beat his man. He's not dominant in the air. He doesn't really... he's best when you play to him in the channels, but we've already identified that we don't do that. We don't have that style of playing as to play into the channels right now. And whether or not that's because we haven't had a striker there, so we've been playing to Fleming, who's playing out of position and all this stuff. But I can't see where the actual issue is, other than we just lack creativity. And for me, I think we need a striker. But the strikers that we've been linked to, like Tom Cannon, for me, I think he's a risk. I think he's more of a risk than Whittaker. I think he's a good player, but are you telling me that Tom Cannon's the guy that you want to spend £10 million on because he's guaranteed to get you 20 goals in the Championship? I don't think so. I remember when people said it about Liam Delap. Now he's playing well for Ipswich. He went to Preston. He was awful. He went to Hull. He was awful. He had such poor spells in the Championship, and now he's having a good spell at Ipswich. There's no guarantee that with a striker we are going to get better, because not many teams sell strikers in January. I think our issue from an attacking perspective is a very deep one because of personnel, because of Scott Parker. But like we said at the start, Joe, and you made that point really well, is that good defenses do win you titles and do get you promoted. And that's why I feel like after saying all of that, we are still where we are because of Scott Parker's style of play. As a manager, he is still doing the right things. I think the thing for me is it's not entertaining. And every football fan wants to be on the edge of the seat all the time. And we haven't been this year. And 22 goals in 24 games isn't good enough. And 4 games in a row scoring 1 goal isn't good enough. But then again, flip it, and we've not conceded in any of those games. So it is a positive. And it's so hard to be able to say like, oh, it's this and it's this and it's this. But I think we've got a tricky task on us. I think the board need to realise that Parker needs something, because you stripped half of it away from him at the start of the season, and you've really, really not given him a lot to work with. So, and people can argue that we've got a lot to work with. We've had players coming back from injury, left, right, and centre, and people talk about like, oh, we've still got Nathan Redmond, we've still got Aaron Ramsey, we've still got these players have literally just started training before Christmas. Mike Trezor, he came on against Reading, looked good. He's not played a single minute in the Championship this season. He's probably going to go. Let's be honest. And then of all the other creative players, the only person who you can actually say has the guaranteed solid statistics this season is Josh Brownhill from the midfield quartet. Josh Brownhill's the only one who has the statistics to back himself up, because Jayden Anthony's not been consistent enough with goals and assists. We've got more assists, I reckon, from Bashir Humphreys over the last 8 weeks than we have from any of those wide players, and that's another issue. So it's not an easy fix, but we need to see something soon.
Yeah, I think you've made some good points. As Casey James in the chat says, some good points there by Sam. We're like an Italian team, just lack any sort of player they'd have to unlock a team. Our 10 spots, like Totti, Del Piero back in the day, etc. There's been some people in the chat as well saying we just move it too slow. And I think that's my main issue. I just think we just move it too slow. Like, yes, we have seen CJ recently trying to do that diagonal pass, trying to be a bit more direct. But again, we just don't have the players. And as Sam said earlier, it's quite easy to read. We just don't have the players to once we're in that position, in my opinion, to be able to do something with it. Like, I just think we move the ball in transition too slow. Like, very rarely you'll see Burnley make a free-flowing attacking move. And I think we started the game well on Friday night, and there were a few times where we, had some decent moves and things like that. But again, we didn't really create enough. There was somebody in the chat earlier saying, is there, you could argue that there's no point in getting a striker when we don't create any chances. Like, we do create chances. And my argument is, I agree, we don't create enough. I fully respect that. We should be creating more for what we want to achieve and, the team that we have. But we do still make chances. And I think in a type of team that doesn't create enough chances, you need somebody that's going to score more goals than they miss. Somebody like Chris Wood is now. And I know Chris Wood was a bit Marmite when he was at Burnley. But Chris Wood these days, he scores more of his chances than he misses. You need somebody that's going to be a prolific striker. I know everybody wants a prolific striker. I get that. But if that Connor Roberts chance falls to a prolific striker that goes in the net, if that Jayden Anthony chance falls to a prolific striker, the chances are it goes in the net. That Fleming penalty chance and the one that he dragged wide as well. If you have a prolific striker in them 4 situations, I think 2 of them go in. So we are creating chances. I agree we're not creating enough, but in this system, which I do agree sometimes relies too much on individual quality, you need more individual quality up front. And we don't have any individual quality. We don't have a number 9. No. I think I'm banging one of the last people banging the drum now of Foster. I still want to see him in the actual 9. I don't understand this obsession with trying Fleming in the 9. I still feel like he'd be better off in the 10 and Foster in that 9. I don't know why he's decided to start putting Foster out on the left. It don't make any sense to me. He played well against Reading on the left. So now that the brainwave from Parker is, that's what I mean. The brainwave against Parker is now to play him on the left against Sunderland.
Yeah, that's what I mean though. Like they're in League 1 and they're not up there in the table. I believe. I don't think they're I don't think
they're not running away with it or anything. They're in a shout of playoffs.
That's what I mean. They're not like being in the playoffs in League 1 is nowhere near like being the best team in League 1, because the best teams in League 1 that get promoted into the Championship still struggle in the Championship. So if you're a playoff team in the in League 1, you are so far off the Championship level, it's ridiculous. Ross Williamson makes another point that is exactly like, it was one of the things that I was going to say as well. If you watch the movement from the players off the ball as well, it's so minimal.
That's
completely agree
system,
with
is it? That's just the rigid system that Parker employs.
But that's one of the things that, and I don't know if you guys felt the same under Dyche, but that's one of the things that used to frustrate the life out of me when you used to go on the turf. And that's back when I used to go on the turf week in, week out. I used to have a season ticket and go to every single game and nearly every away game. I used to watch on that left-hand side, Charlie Taylor and Dwight McNeil. And Dwight would get the ball and he'd play it back to Charlie, and he wouldn't run. He'd just stand still. And then Charlie would give it ball back, and then Charlie would stand still. And then he'd give it ball back. And they'd keep passing the ball until the other team pressed us and we were forced to lump the ball forward and we just lost possession. That's what we do now. You get the ball with Jaden Anthony from a crossfield ball from CJ Egan-Riley, which is a great ball, by the way, but pointless, absolutely pointless, because you're playing it to one player. You're giving it to Jaden Anthony, who, like I've said, is not glaring with what he can do. I don't think when you get the ball with Jaden, he's brilliant at standing his man up and squaring him off and going inside or outside. That's what he's really good at. But he's not gifted for being lightning quick. So when you get him through on goal, 9 times out of 10, the fullback gets back and he has to turn back and play it back. Then after that, it goes into Cullen, and then Cullen always has 2 choices. He either plays it forward into Brownhill to his feet, or he plays it to Steve, or he plays it back to CJ. 8 times out of 10, it goes to the centre halves. At which point, Sunderland, in this case, just drop back into their banks of 4, because they know that all they have to do is wait for Burnley to try and force it forward. And when we do force it forward, they just get the ball back. And what they did really well, which we didn't, was when they broke, they kept playing little passing movements and kept moving off the ball. And that the reason why Isidore kept going through on goal and went through on goal from Lefay's pass is because he tried to run in behind. And the reason why Lefay got through is because he knocked the ball past his man and played it around. You have to try and be somewhat creative. You can't just sit there and think, fine margins, it's safer to make a pass from left to right than it is to try and play a pass into the 10 and try and play to feet. We have to try and start taking those risks. And I think that's where it comes to, it's not just system. That's where it comes down to individuals, because you know that you can't ping that ball into Fleming's feet and it's going to stick. You know you can't do that because it doesn't. You can't play the ball down to Anthony and have a glaring run from Fleming because he doesn't have that pace. So you can't play the same type of ball that you do with Isidore.
Fleming doesn't make the run as well, though. Like
no.
This is, like you said about the cross from Egan-Riley. Like Egan-Riley puts the ball across, diagonal ball across to Anthony. Mm-hmm. Anthony gets himself to the byline. There's no one in the box because Foster is out wide for God knows what reason. Even when he was playing in the 9, he wasn't making the run. Fleming's not a striker, so he's not making the run. So the only option is to turn back and pass it back to your left back, turn back and pass it back to Cullen, or try and cut inside, by which point they've got too many men back, and that's that's the issue that we're having with Anthony. We're having it with Coley-Shaw. Like you said, with Cullen, he gets the ball. His only option is to try and get it through to Brownhill, pass it through to Brownhill. There's no one there for him to knock it onto, or pass it back to your defenders, who 9 times out of 10 are going to knock it back to Trafford. If you watched the game last week against Reading compared to when we've played this season with Trafford, the two centre, fair enough, you can't drop the two centre halves we've got at the minute because they're fucking outstanding defenders, but they passed the ball back to Trafford so many times compared to last week against Reading. We barely gave the ball back to Hladky.
No.
That's... We like this passing movement, and I like how solid we are and the way that Parker does set us up. But we pass it so many times, and no one wants to take a risk. You go back to... Like you said before, Sam, you don't want to compare it to the company season, but you look back at that season, you've got players like Teller who'll take a risk, Benson who'll cut in on his left foot and have a shot. Players will just have a do from anywhere, and they'll just have a go and just try and make a run, because you've got to at some point. And there's no... Even Brownhill now, at the start of the season, he just hit it from anywhere and hope, try and get it in. And he's not doing that. And we've not got a single player who will do that. The only person who might try it is Fleming, and he can't because he's not in the right positions to do it.
And when you're playing back to goal, that's not his strength. No. And we've seen that since the start of the season. And Parker 100% will see that as well. I'm still a huge fan of Scott Parker, and this is why I still keep bringing up the summer transfer window. I can't help but I know what's happening through the season and what he has to deal with. I get that, but what was given to him, not a lot of managers go through. That was a mass exodus of a team, and Parker's had to find his style of play with players that don't even know Burnley, don't even know some of the lads in the dressing room, don't even know what the training ground looks like, because he was trying to get it all. Now we're getting all these different players back. Now you're getting Aaron Ramsey in, and what he's getting is he's getting some of his players, some panic buys, and some of company's players all trying to gel that team together. That's not Scott Parker's team. It's not. I can guarantee that he did not want every single one of those signings that he made or that we managed to make. And I can absolutely guarantee that the squad that we started the season with, he will have been a lot happier to have taken that job in the summer than he will have done the squad that we're with now. So that's why I keep going back to that, because I really genuinely do feel for him in this situation. What we're actually getting from Parker right now, statistics-wise, talking not goals, but points-wise, and where we are in the table, he is doing an absolute hell of a job. And I think the media spin it as well because of the expectation of being a team that comes down from the Premier League and the money that we've invested, even though we sold about 125 million quid's worth of players. We should be doing better in front of goal. Fair enough. Still agree with that. But these fixes aren't as simple as bring this player in and bring that player in, it's all fine. I think we've got some issues with where players play. Like I say, I still think that we've got an issue on that left-hand side, that we haven't got a clue who actually plays there. I think if you get Morgan Whittaker in, I think what that can do is, to my knowledge, and I don't know if you guys know any differently, but to me, Jayden Anthony is more effective on the left-hand side, only because he has that ability to cut inside. I do think he's good at beating his man, but I think he's playing out of position because under Parker at Bournemouth, he was a left midfielder. So I think that would solve that situation. You'd have a guaranteed starter in Anthony and a guaranteed starter in Whittaker, but I still think we need a striker. And in January, I don't think there's players out there that I think that we should go for, because for me, and I know some people in the comments are saying Cannon, I still think he would be a risk. He's 22 years old. He's played at Stoke. He's not set the world alight. Do we spend 13 million quid on him, get to the Premier League and have another Foster situation of him not being the guy and need to go and buy a striker again? That's my only issue.
The only thing I'd say with
Go on, Andrew, sorry.
just to carry on with the Anthony thing. The only thing I'd say is 4 games ago, we looked like it was starting to come together. Like, we're at the Watford game, we won 2-0. Like, we had a little passing moves, and, you know, it did look like it was starting to come together, and we were all saying, you know, it's looking like it's gelling. Then we had to mix the team up because we played 3 games in 7 days. We took, and I know Chris is in the chat, and I know Chris is going to roll his eyes at this, but we took Hannibal out. Obviously, then he came on and got himself sent off, and he's missed the last 3 games. And since then, we've scored 1 goal. I know he's not the answer, because he's definitely not the answer. But when we played that midfield of the 3 Joshes, Hannibal on the left, Anthony on the right, with Fleming up front, we looked like we'd started to do well. We still need a striker. Like, we still need someone in that number 9, because Foster, I don't think he's hit double. Like, has he hit double figures for us yet? And he's been here nearly 3 years. Like, he's not
even come close, has he?
You know, he's not our main. He shouldn't be our main striker. Our other options are Ashley Barnes, who, let's be honest, we all love the bones of the man, but he's not going to get us 10 goals before end of season. Or Jay Rodriguez, who, again, we all know I love the bones of the man, but he's not going to get 5 goals before the end of the season. Yeah. Or Fleming in a position that's not his position. We need a striker, but we need to sort out that them wingers as well. Like, Sam is absolutely spot on with that. But I think you have to bring Hannibal back into it, because in those games where he was playing on the left, seemed like it was working, at least for me.
It was just his quickness of thinking. That's what I like about him. He's able to play that passing side, and he does play with a little bit of. I'm not saying he's the answer by any stretch, but he does play with a little. He does have that risk taking ability, like, and it's one of the players that you do sit there sometimes and think, good on you. Like, he tries a back heel, and all right, yeah, he loses the ball like a couple of times, but would you rather lose the ball a couple of times, but have the ball at least in your opponent's half? Or would you rather be watching what we had at the weekend, where you had Foster, the best thing he did all game was accidentally kick the ball off a defender? And then after that, I mean, the amount of times that I saw him on left-hand side with Bashir Humphreys had bombed on, and rather than just doing what a normal striker or attacking player would do, which is just either try and get up with him to help him or move yourself inside to try and be an option in the box, he filled in at fullback. What are you doing? Get up the pitch, man. I find him so frustrating. Like Andrew says, he's been here 3 years now. He's not at double figures. At what point do you say enough is enough? He's not the guy. He's not the striker. He started the season up front and he only had like 2 goals. And that's when he was playing the striker and he was leading the line.
Sam, I mean, he's got one in the league. He's got 1 goal in the league.
In those 2 games, right, where we were like the best team in England, where we scored 9 goals in 2 games, was he injured? Like,
no,
I don't think so. He played in them, didn't
he? He didn't even score when we were best team in Championship for 2 games. We scored 9 goals. Every attacking player in the entire half of the team that's not even here anymore scored, and he's not even scored. Like, at what point do you just go, he's not the guy? Like, we need to be bringing in somebody like a Whittaker and somebody, because Whittaker does excite me. He's got a lot of pace and he's a player that does take risks. And he's taking risks in Plymouth's team. Like, Plymouth are bottom at table and he's still taking risks. Like, if we have somebody like a Whittaker, at least you're going to be on the edge of your seat when he tries to take his man on. At least you're going to give Anthony the ability to cut inside and play those whip balls in. But we need a striker still. There's just there's a lot to fix, but again, there's a lot of positive. Like, so yeah, it's really weird because I'm like annoyed and not at the same time.
No, I get it though. Like, the lack of creativity is a concern. I don't know how we fix it. With Hannibal, I don't know. I don't think he's the answer that, as Chris has just said in the TurfCast WhatsApp group, because I've just messaged him saying, I hope you're not watching now, because he put something in the group earlier on at 18:46. He says, tell everyone to shut up. Hannibal at Plymouth away will not work. So I just messaged him in a minute ago saying, hope you're still not watching. We're talking about Hannibal. And he's put, tell the chat, if Hannibal starts at Plymouth, I won't watch.
He's not necessarily... Hannibal's not necessarily the answer. Like, we all know that he's not the answer. But he gives us something different, and he actually seems like he turns and he wants to attack. And that's what we're missing. Like, that is what we're missing at the moment. And, all right, he's a brain
That's
dead
damning there, by the way, isn't it, from Melanie?
Yeah.
She's properly stick to the foot in there on Foster. That is damning. But yeah, sorry, Andrew, carry on with the Hannibal thing.
The Cardiff goalkeeper scored the same amount of goals for Burnley as Foster did. But yeah, like we know Hannibal's not the answer. We know that, but he gives us something a bit more, and he actually wants to try and get a goal. Like, he actually wants to attack, and that's what we're missing from everyone else at the minute.
What I like about Hannibal is, I think Sam mentioned it earlier, or it might have been you, Andrew. Somebody mentioned it. He's a bit more direct. He's not as slow with the ball. He will move the ball a little bit quicker than the players that we have. That's not saying too much, because the players that we have move the ball ridiculously slow. Whether he plays at Plymouth or not, I'm not sure. I think it's because the 4 games that we've had where we haven't scored, or we've only scored the 1 goal in the league, have just happened to coincide with when he's been out. Whether that's a coincidence or not, I guess we'll find out when he comes back into the team if we start scoring again. But I like the fact that he's a little bit more direct. Do I think Plymouth away is the game for him? I'm probably leaning more towards no with Chris on this one. But then who else is there? Like, I would like to see Trezor in there, but he clearly doesn't want to be here. I'd like to see Koleosho in there, the Koleosho that we thought would be coming into the league with, but he's not been playing that well this season. Do I want to see Foster on the left again? No. So then who else is there? So maybe Hannibal is the person. I'm not too sure, but it's interesting to see that Hannibal is now sort of like the person that people want to come back in after there was a lot of stuff where, you know, a lot of people were a little bit unsure on Hannibal. Dale Husband says he won't, or at least he won't start. Foster will start. I do not want to see Foster in that position again. I thought he was poor. It's different playing against Plymouth than it is playing against Sunderland. Let's also put that in there. Sunderland, in my opinion, have the best midfield in the Championship. Plymouth, for want of a better phrase, just don't. But maybe he's the answer. I'm not sure. To be on the left anyway. Phil said he's a nightmare for the opposition, disrupting their game and limiting their chances to play how they want. And he goes on to say he's always on the opponents, forcing them into mistakes, rushing their play, even if he doesn't want to. And another thing, I just quickly, we will start looking at starting to wrap up, but we're not wrapping up just yet. You might get an extra 10 minutes out of us yet. As usual, I will sort of like get towards the end of the stream, me chatting about the league table and stuff, basically. I'm not sure how well you can see that. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to remove the screen and then share it again now, and hopefully that makes it a little bit clearer to see for you. There you go. That's a bit better, isn't it? Right. So obviously, good news and bad news in the league this weekend. The bad news, we'll start with the bad news. Leeds United won. They beat Sheffield Wednesday today. Sheffield United also won. They beat Norwich yesterday. Obviously, the good news is that Sunderland didn't win, as I'm sure everybody knows. So they stay beneath us at that point in the end. And again, I know a Burnley fan's been in the chat and put something about us celebrating the draw. Like, nobody was celebrating the fact that we drew 0-0 at home to Sunderland. People were celebrating the way that we got them points. And if you can't enjoy 2 last-minute penalty saves, or 2 penalty saves, should I say, in the last 15 minutes, then football isn't the sport for you. I do sometimes think it's ridiculous when teams celebrate draws, especially if you throw flares on the pitch for a draw when you haven't beaten your near rivals for just short of 16 years. But in this circumstances, I think we can look at it and be like, yeah, fair enough, celebrate that because of the way we did it. So Sunderland are still beneath us. The good news is Blackburn lost embarrassingly at Oxford. But more bad news is that nobody else in and around the playoff seems to want to win football matches. West Brom drew, Middlesbrough lost. All right, Watford won, but then Bristol City, Sheffield Wednesday, and Norwich all lost. I think, honestly, I think the quality in this league is awful. I really, really do. Anyone apart from the top four, I think is pretty bang average at best. Like genuinely, Blackburn obviously are the best of the rest at the minute, apart from the top four. I think they're awful. I'm not just saying that because it's Blackburn. I think they're awful. Like teams like West Brom and Watford should be ashamed of themselves. They should, and Middlesbrough, they should be able to push on, but they've not managed to. But anyway, Andrew, I'll come to you first because it's in screen order. That's the league table there. That's how it ends after match week 27. Are you happy with where we are at the minute, or are you a little bit disappointed that we've started to not slide away, because it's been in this situation a few times where we look like Leeds and Sheffield United are going to start pulling away, but then we claw them back in. Obviously, Leeds is our next home game next Monday, actually. That one's coming around thick and fast, and we have got a game in the middle of that again. I'll hopefully be able to do a pre-game show, which we should win away at Plymouth, but football isn't played on paper, is it? But anyway, Andrew, what's your thoughts looking at that league table?
I'm happy with it at the minute, mate. Like we're still well within it. Like I say, we win our next two games. Obviously, Plymouth bottom of the league, we should be getting something against them, and then Leeds at home. Like if we win those next two games, we're into automatics. Like I don't know, doesn't matter with Sheffield United's game. Like we win them, we could be in automatics. Like so, we're third, and we're playing not poorly, but we're third and we're not creating enough chances. It's, like Claret Al says there's too many Ds on our line. But we're still not losing. Like, we've still only lost 2 all season. We've still only conceded 9 goals all season. We're still third, and we know that we need a striker. We know that we need more attacking outlet. Like, if it was the end of March and we'd be looking at the table like this now, I'd start to get a little bit concerned that we're not going to get automatics. But I'd be happy with play. We just have to get back up. Like, that's the focus this season. Automatics, title, or playoffs. We just have to get back up. Like, that's the only thing that we need to do. And we're third at the minute. So, yeah, I'd like us to be higher up, but I can't complain.
You know what? I was thinking about this when I was driving today. I was thinking about we could actually be in the playoffs here. I don't think I can do it. Like if we play Sunderland in the playoffs over the course of 2 legs, or even in the final, I think they beat us. I think they will win that midfield battle again, like they have done the last 2 times. For obvious reasons, you don't want to play Blackburn. Although I think over the course of 2 games, or even in 1 game, I do think we'll beat Blackburn. We seem to have their number. But even then, they've got West Brom. They're hit and miss. You could catch them on a good day. Middlesbrough, another team we've struggled to score against this year. Watford, all right, we did really well against them at the Turf, to be fair. But they seem hit and miss as well. So it's going to be difficult. Burnley Blackburn playoff final, says Dominic. Honestly, mate, I think their bubble has burst. Look at their form. Lose, win, which were against Portsmouth at home, by the way. Lose against us, draw, lose. Their bubbles burst, mate. They will not finish in the playoffs. So yeah, it's going to be interesting. Sam, your thoughts looking at that league table, please, mate.
I really don't think you can be annoyed at it. Like, I mean, you're 3 points behind the team that's top of the table. You're 2 points behind the team that's just in front of you, who you've beaten already this season. We just need to worry about those teams from 12th down, because we can't keep going into games that we should win and draw, because we're not losing them. Like, because we've lost 2 games all year, but 11 draws is frightening. And when you actually then put the context on those draws as well, they're not just draws. They're not draws against Middlesbrough and Sunderland like we had, because they're good draws. The draws against Oxford, the draws against Preston, they're not results that you want. So happy, very happy, but there is still things that need to change, because we can't. If we have the same form, I think we stay where we are. If we have the same form from the first half of the season, I think we stay where we are, and I think we end up third, and we have to do the playoffs. And I have to admit, I think we are a lot better than that. I think we're better than Sheffield United. I really do. I watch them play.
I agree. I don't think they're all that. I did think they were good, but then they've lost Suter. And I just when I watched them at Bramall Lane, I thought they were poor. And then they were on TV the week after. I can't remember who it against, but I thought they were poor again. Sheffield United fans are probably watching us saying the same thing. But I agree. I do think we're better than Sheffield United.
No, but I also think that to other fans, like, we are not a great team to look at. I also think, like I say, that's the spin of the media as well. Like, the media have spun that narrative as well, that like, oh, Burnley were expected to do this and haven't. But like, we're third, 3 points off the top of the table. So it's like there's this weird narrative that like we should be better, but we're not. But what we're actually doing is quite good. We just, as soon as we can start it in the back of the net, at least a goal a game, because we know that defensively we can go game after game after game without conceding. If we can start to average a goal a game, that league table looks so much better. So yeah. Still happy though. Again,
you've hit the nail on the head. Where you said, I can't remember which bit you said now. But where you were talking about the draws at home to Preston, Derby, QPR, there's been so many of them. That there's been far too many of them. You turn 4 of them into wins and you're top comfortably. I think going forward now, and I don't mean literally going forward in terms of our play, but I mean going forward in linear time. We need to start turning these games into wins, because there's going to be more times when teams come to the turf and just sit in a low block. There's going to be. Plymouth could do it on Wednesday night. I know not many teams do it when they're at home, but Oxford did, and Oxford are much better than Plymouth. I think we've seen now so far. I think if Plymouth just sit in a low block and then try and pump the ball up to Whittaker, we could be in for a struggle on Wednesday night. But we need to turn these draws into wins, and in terms of going forward on the pitch, we need to learn how to break these teams down. That's the one thing. If we can do that, if we can find a way to break teams down, I know it's so obvious saying this, and we've spent 1 hour, 20 minutes saying something that anybody can sum up in a sentence. But if we can learn how to break teams down, we'll win the league. We won't even just go up, we'll win it. But I feel like we need to tweak the system slightly, which I don't think Parker's going to do. And I think we need to bring in players like Whittaker, which I think if we get Whittaker in, it's probably going to be a loan or something like that, but I don't know. Sunderland fan still in the chat. He says, enjoyed your content today. Pretty fair assessment of the game. Best of luck with the season for the rest of your season, guys. Cheers, mate. I do appreciate that. Claret Owl says, love that top, Joe. Where did you get it from? There's a Twitter account. You can't see it. I'm trying to make you see it. There's a Twitter account called EST1882. He's just a lad that does shirts and stuff. Just have a look on there. He does a lot of quality stuff. I think I've advertised it and given away a hoodie before on the Twitter account, mate. But I can't remember exactly when I did that. Dale Husband says Parker will win us a playoffs, not conceding will do it. Could you imagine if we just 0-0, 1-0 and 1-0 the playoffs? Which it would be perfect somewhere else season, to be fair. Dominic Hall says, if we don't go automatically given this poor quality league, it will be a big opportunity to miss, and I'd fear next season. Ross Williamson says, team is screaming out for a Charlie Austin type player for me. And you know what, mate? I agree. And I feel like that's the perfect time to end it. We've had a good chat, 1 hour and 20 minutes. And before I do end it, is anything that you two want to quickly add that we may have missed?
No.
Say if we done man of the match shouts, but I think
oh God, I'm glad you did that, mate. I've forgotten that before. That's poor from me. Yeah, let's quickly do man of the match and then we will wrap it up. Everybody let me know, get your comments in now, who your man of the match was. I'm pretty certain everybody's going to pick the same person. Having said that, if it wasn't for them 2 penalty saves at the end, I wouldn't be picking James Trafford. Nothing against Trafford. I don't think he was horrendous in terms of saving and coming and collecting crosses and stuff. He just weren't great with the ball at his feet. But it would have been Maxime Esteve. I thought he was brilliant. But my man of the match is, of course, going to go to James Trafford. Obviously, 2 penalty saves, won us the point, got into Sunderland's, Isodor's head, Isidore, however you pronounce it. So it has to be Trafford. It has to be. There's no anybody else it can be. Having said that, I'll go to Sam now, and he'll give it somebody else. Sam, who are your man of the match?
It's James Trafford, isn't it? I mean, the lad was. I mean, we haven't spoken about it massively, but he managed to get us a point in a game where the referee and ourselves a little bit as well genuinely tried to give Sunderland the game, and he was the only person who said that's not happening. And I loved the arrogance as well. Like, I just think that's so good. And he's had a lot of stick as well, and we've been three of them. So I think for him to get the credit he deserves, absolutely sublime Friday, sorry.
Yep, fair enough. John Rubino's actually gone for Humphreys. Dale Husband's gone for Super James Trafford. Jordan Rushworth has gone for Isidore. Man of the match says George Rodriguez. It has to be Trafford. Jack O'Callaghan says Traff. Esteve, if not Trafford, says J. And I didn't mean, by the way, you can't give it Traff. I'll just say if I wasn't going to give it Traff, I would have given it Esteve. Traffic, says Tony. I think he means Trafford. Jack T. Stretch says Ashley Barnes for his exceptional lessons with Trafford. He says bloody autocorrect. Traff. Has the ref been arrested yet? Says John. No, but apparently he had nightmares last night of James Trafford because he was desperate to give Sunderland the win, weren't he? Andrew, your man of the match, please, mate.
Obviously, it's going to go Trafford. Like I said in my fan reaction, and I said before, I didn't think he played particularly well. But he saved those two penalties and obviously got us the point. But I do want to give an honourable mention to the drains at Turf Moor for soaking up all of Isidore's tears and the Sunderland fans' tears because, they're still crying now.
We've had some nice Sunderland fans in the comments as well. I agree. Some of them have been hard work on Twitter, but the Sunderland fans in the comments of this chat have been quite nice, to be fair. So if you've now turned them into on their villain mark, then Andrew, that's you. But I did quite enjoy that. But anyway, we'll leave it there. If you have joined late, like Phil did earlier, he said, I've come in late. Evening, lads, apologies. And don't worry, when I press end stream, it stays on YouTube and it stays on Facebook for you to watch back on demand at your leisure whenever you wish. Or if you'd rather listen to it in audio format, I will be uploading the podcast pretty much straight away. So it will be there for your morning commute or whatever it is you're doing tomorrow, or even if you're walking the dog later tonight or in the morning, whatever. It will be there as and when. But Sam, Andrew, thank you. As always, it's been a pleasure.
Absolutely.
No problem, mate.
Lovely.
And there probably won't be one for the Plymouth game because it's midweek. So we'll be back after. Oh, the Leeds game's an awkward one, isn't it, as well? Oh, God, that's going to be hard work. There'll definitely be a pre-game show for both of them games. Fingers crossed we can do a full-time show. Not on Monday night, obviously, after the Leeds match, because it'll be far too late. I'll speak to the lads in the chat and we'll try and organise something for maybe Tuesday or something like that. But we're all busy. We have lives and some of us have children. It's hard work, but I will try my best to get some content out for you guys. But thank you, everybody, for watching. Thank you, everybody, for listening. We will see you next time.